Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the I'm on a Mission podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Montero, and this is my partner in crime, Sam Wilson.
Hello again, everyone.
Um, yeah, so we're super excited. I know Corsan's especially excited. Do you want to tell the viewers why?
Um, so this week there was the finals for the World Baseball Classic. Pretty good game at the end, USA versus Japan. Half Japanese, half American. So I was pretty excited that both my teams were there and Japan got the win. So pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was a win for baseball, especially at the end. Like, you could not have scripted a better ending between two teammates. Um, you could argue that like Trout was the best baseball player before Otani joined the MLB. But there's a strong argument to be made on like who's the best player on the Angels between Otani and Trout. So just having that face off and then seeing how it end on a 3-2 pitch count, I thought it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't watch the game, but from the highlights I saw for the homers, like I thought, wow, if this is what baseball is gonna turn to with the new rules and having the World Baseball Classic like advertised as well as it did, I think it's good for the future of baseball. I also one thing that was shocking to me, I was watching the Pat McAfee show when they were discussing the World Baseball Classic. I was shocked by like the fact that there's so many viewers in Japan for baseball because that's something I didn't know. Like I heard the numbers went up to like um well over like some Super Bowl like TV viewerships. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. So if if you can get that same kind of energy for baseball in America, I think it could be huge for the MLB because they need it.
hmm Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so today will be mostly focused on draft rumors, a lot of trades in the NFL. It's been a while since we recorded episode one and episode two. There's been a lot of trades, like key moves that we're definitely going to talk about. Especially as a Bears fan, I want to get to one in particular. But to start us off, there's been a lot of hype around Anthony Richardson. I don't think his draft stock has improved like less than anybody else's in the entire draft. And I think it's worth discussing based on his combine numbers and um, just the tape you see when he runs with a football. To consider the question this: do we think his ceiling is worth comparing to Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, or Cam Newton? I'm talking about prime Cam Newton when he was on the Panthers, like 2015 Cam Newton. Do you think it's worth discussing that?
Um, yeah, I think obviously any quarterback with this kind of profile has a lot of potential going into the NFL, but just kind of looking at his college tape and just kind of what he did in this most recent year, definitely shows he's a huge project quarterback. And me personally, while I do think he can be good, I wouldn't want my team to, invest a first round pick in him, but just kind of how I perceive Anthony Richardson as a player right now.
Wow, you wouldn't take him in the first round,
I wouldn't.
really? I feel that way about Will Levis, but I think Anthony Richardson's worth. I think he's what people thought Malik Willis would be. When I look at his cannon of an arm, he does have it. And he does know where to place the football. When you look at him throwing 30 yards or more downfield, he does have that. I was watching some tape against South Carolina where the protection was not as ideal. And there's some plays where he made NFL type um, steps in the pocket to navigate, which I thought were impressive. But granted, I think that's one of his weaknesses right now, just because, like you said, he doesn't have enough experience. Um, I think a lot of the big plays and the highlights you see, he has a clean pocket. So um, that's something that worth noting. Noting if he is like drafted as high as like five in some of the NFL mock drafts I see. I think it's worth noting that he's not going to be in an ideal situation where the blocking is going to be perfect. So if he goes somewhere like Carolina, Indianapolis, or even the Texans, I think that's worth considering um, the situation he's walking into. Um, Year one, no, I don't think so. I think he has the talent to show it like in the second half of the first year, but I think it'll take him like 2 or 3 years to develop that, like you said. So I'm in
Mm-hmm.
agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, yeah, a lot of his issues, I guess, in college was around footwork and just making reads. And obviously, that's a huge part of like transferring your game from college ball to pro ball. And so if he can't make that transition, similar to how Jalen Hurts has been able to make those transitions in regard to accuracy, footwork, and just being able to read defenses a bit better. Then obviously, if he can do those things, Anthony Richardson is 100% worth whatever you put into him. But it all comes down to, can he learn those things?
Yeah, yeah, it will take time, but I'll say this. I say looking at passing accuracy as an indicator in college isn't necessarily accurate, and I have no other word to put it. When making comparisons to how he'll fare in the NFL, I know like one prominent example is Baker Mayfield in that Oklahoma system. We're talking about like Jalen Hurts; he was in that Oklahoma system too. A lot of people are concerned with Jalen Hurts' accuracy, whereas Baker Mayfield had the accuracy in college, but it wasn't quantified correctly for how he translated to the NFL because it didn't assess how he do when the situations were ideal, but the defenses gave him complex coverages. And he didn't manage the pocket well, in my opinion. Where with Anthony Richardson, he's still a project where he can learn how to do that, and he's shown how he's done that with South Carolina. Um, I think the lack of accuracy is not an issue for me because when I look at the receiving talent and the amount of drop passes that were there on tape by the receivers, I wouldn't attribute that to Richardson himself. But when you see the speed, when you're talking about a quarterback on the move, I think it's there. I think it's real. When you see the arm cannon, I think it's real. I think he really needs to get with an offensive-minded head coach to really elevate his stock. But I think it's worth rediscussing 2 or 3 years from now whether he has met those expectations, those lofty expectations set by Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This happened a while back, but Patrick Kane was traded to the New York Rangers. So I'm personally sad about the move. Not going to put any objectiveness to this because obviously, like Patrick Kane was probably, if you're a Blackhawks fan, your favorite player. Just just all the goals he had, the trophies he collected with the Blackhawks. I mean, he was just unbelievable, man. He was the foundation of our team, and it's kind of signaled the end of the Tays, Duncan Keith, Patrick Kane era, along with Marion Hossa. Like it's just like the last piece of the puzzle that got traded, and I just express all the admiration and appreciation for him.
Yeah, and kind of sad to see an end of an era. Every time it happens with sports, feels like you've lost so much time almost. But I think that he'll obviously be forever remembered in Chicago as a legend and as a sports hero for the team. And so I think no matter what he does in the future, gonna have a lot of joy and happiness from his memories in Chicago.
Full disclosure, and if you're not a Blackhawks fan, this is like us saying, "Oh, Derrick Rose was traded after his prime years," or this is like saying, "Oh, Justin Fields suddenly got traded." This is on that notion of that. Khalil Mack getting traded, those kind of moves. So Patrick Kane means a lot to the city, but especially a lot to Blackhawks fans for how many Stanley Cups he brought home. Okay, let's talk NFL again. This time we got one major free agency signing that I think is worth discussing. Derek Carr to the Saints. How do you think this affects the field position players, wide receivers, running back, tight ends?
Yeah, I think everybody in that Saints offense will be elevated. See, I'm personally not a huge believer in the McDaniels offensive system, and so you can kind of see that with the regression the Raiders offenses took, the regression they had last season compared to a season before where they're playoff contenders and everyone was thinking that they're on an upward trend. And so I think Derek Carr with a new offense, well, it'll take some time to learn maybe, but just the fact that he probably has a better offensive system around him, plus better talent, just as an overall general statement, will definitely elevate himself. Plus, I think everybody on that offense should take a step forward again.
I think this is huge for Chris Olave. 100%. Like I've been a fan of Chris Olave. I thought he was the best receiver of the class. It was a close one to Garrett Wilson, but I think with this move, it just gives them the consistency he can to like put up 1,200 yards or 1,400 yard seasons. I know he's opposite of Michael Thomas, but you could see by the 1 year contract, they don't believe in him too much, like to stay healthy throughout the entire season. But I think having Michael Thomas opposite of you is going to open up opportunity for him. And he now has a quarterback that can get him the ball consistently and has had a lot of starts on the table. And I think for him it will be huge. I know they just signed Jamal Williams. I think Jamal Williams is going to be a huge addition, especially when you don't know what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara this season. There's a lot on the table for that. But I think Derek Carr is going to bring consistency and elevate those young players they need. So I think it's a good move for the Saints, particularly because they've always had a great defense. They have a great defensive minded coach who's worked with Carr before. So I think this will bring knowledge and relationships back into the fold where the Saints are going to elevate their offense. As for the Raiders, dude, I have no idea what they're doing. I absolutely have no idea. They just shipped off Darren Waller, and we'll talk about him later. And then they signed Jimmy G. I think it was more of a lateral move, if anything. It wasn't a clear elevation. Um, with that said, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up drafting a rookie quarterback because with that offense, with Josh Jacobs, with Devontae Adams, with Hunter Renfro, and then now Jacoby Myers, I think you really need a top 10 QB or someone with that ceiling to really elevate that offense. So I don't think Jimmy G's the guy for that team. I think he's more of a placeholder for the next QB they're thinking about. But I could be proven wrong. After all, he's just one play away from winning the Super Bowl away from the Chiefs. So I think the Raiders are in a slow transition. Um, but I don't know what they're doing with the Jacoby Myers signing and the Jimmy G signing
Yeah,
because it doesn't elevate their offense. It kind of keeps the same or risks having regression like forced upon them.
yeah. And yeah, and with Jimmy G as well. I mean, he is coming from the Shanahan offense, which probably one of the most quarterback friendly offenses in the league, and going to McDaniels again, which I think just kind of regressed that whole Raiders offense in general, which obviously isn't a good sign for Jimmy Garoppolo right now. And then on top of that, like you said, the Raiders seem to be in this really awkward phase of a couple players that are starting to age, but also seeming like they want to rebuild and maybe use Jimmy Garoppolo as the bridge quarterback for their future. But you got guys like Devontae Adams, who's a bit older. You got Josh Jacobs, who, I mean, while he's still young, you're in that awkward situation of like, do they extend him? Do they keep on trying to keep him on short
He's
deals and
what,
whatnot?
25, 26 right now?
Yeah, he's not too old, but there's always that
Yeah.
whole stigma with second contracts with running backs, and
Yeah.
how a lot of times they don't live up to that second contract to its full potential. Kind of see that with Ezekiel Elliott, where I mean he had a historically big contract, but obviously kind of towards the end he more or less kind of played a little bit worse than people expected him to, and looks like they're going towards Tony Pollard and potentially a running back in the draft.
I have my take on Zeke. I think it's a little bit overblown. But regarding the Raiders, I think all their moves have signaled they want to be more of a run blocking team. But the weapons they have on the outside, except for Jacoby Myers, indicate that they really need a passer to kind of spread the defense laterally and vertically in order to have that effectiveness. That's why I didn't like the Waller trade so much. I understand uh, Foster Moreau, sorry, is one of the most underrated receiving talents, I think, in the league. I think he could be a top 10 tight end anywhere else if he wasn't behind Waller. So I think this helps him in that regard. But the Jacoby Myers signing, I don't think it stretches the defense vertically. They really think they needed to keep a guy like Waller to go up the seams, split one of the safeties, so then Devontae can cut underneath or Hunter Renfro can cut underneath. And I think that aspect would help open up the lanes for Josh Jacobs. Um, but with that said, especially with Jimmy G, you would want those receiving talents to have the separation. I think there'll be a lot more balance, but I'm not sure if that will translate to the production and the wins change that they're looking for to really get into the playoffs, especially when you consider they're in a division with the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos who just got Sean Payton. So how much worse can you get for the Broncos? And if you're the Raiders, I think sorry to say this, it's looking like they're not going to finish well in that division based on their move. Unless something happens where they just absolutely kill it in the draft, I do not have high confidence in this team.
Yeah. But also with the Raiders, actually, I do believe that Foster Moreau is scheduled to be a free agent right now, and they did just sign OJ Howard not too long ago. Is that
Okay.
what I think?
Okay.
I think that might have just happened. So we'll kind of see what their plans are with OJ Howard, and hopefully they bring Foster Moreau back. Like you said, he has potential to be an excellent tight end, but it'd be kind of weird for them to get rid of two tight ends just to bring back one who really hasn't proved himself in the league.
Especially when they had the league-leading rusher Josh Jacobs, you would think they would move to two tight end sets to try and promote that running game and play action a little bit better. We'll see. We'll see. I hope they bring back Moreau. I think he's a good player. But then again, I don't know what philosophy they're trying to take right now. It's a little bit of a mixed bag to me. One thing I am still confused about as of March 22nd, 2023, we still do not have an idea of where Lamar Jackson might play this season. We think if they're playing hardball, the Ravens, but I have no idea why so many teams are out. I'm surprised Atlanta's not chomping at the bit to try and get Lamar Jackson, especially after Carolina just traded for the first overall pick. Why do you think no teams are interested in Lamar right now?
I guess I can start off with just Atlanta's perspective as of now, at least. Obviously, you have Desmond Ridder, who I don't think personally is a good quarterback, but they did just invest a third round pick into him last year, and he'll finally get a full off season to potentially kind of learn the offense as a starting quarterback. And Atlanta probably wants to see what they have with that, and they also did sign Taylor Heineke just to kind of be a safe backup quarterback that can come in and start. And while I don't think that's, I guess, the best inherent option for Atlanta, I understand that decision-making process that they went through to get there. But then with Lamar, I feel like, teams are oftentimes like scared of just different scheme changes. And obviously there's a lot of coaches in the NFL that may not know or trust themselves to adapt their offenses to Lamar Jackson's playing style. And, because I feel like if Lamar hadn't gone to the Ravens, when he was drafted, I feel like he would have had a very different career trajectory where, a coach might have tried to force him to be exclusively a pocket passer with a few rollout plays or a few read option plays here and there. But I think, like, for example, Nathaniel Hackett with Russell Wilson kind of shows that, you need the right coach for the right player, or a right coach that is able to adjust his offense to make sure that he plays to his player's strengths and not trying to force his players to play to their own strengths.
I'll expand a little bit why I think Atlanta was the better destination, because you do bring up good points. Coaching matters, and you have to know the talent you have and build around their strengths. And then the Ravens did a great job of that. Lamar's MVP season. I think they got a little bit snake bit with the injuries the past couple of seasons, especially at the running back and receiver positions. And that can hurt any quarterback's development, no matter how good you are. The reason why I say Atlanta's the best fit is because of what Arthur Smith did with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. And then coming to Atlanta, working with Cordell Patterson and Marcus Mariota. If you know anything about those four players, they're not remotely the same type of skill set. Especially Marcus Mariota. He's more of a scrambling quarterback. You cannot ask him to go into the pocket, make post-snap reads with changing defenses and expect him to beat the defense with his arm. That's what we've seen so far for his career. And I think that's why they moved on from Marcus. But Lamar can do that. I just don't think the passing offense in Baltimore has been developed enough to allow him to do that, which you saw them make a philosophical change by bringing in Todd Monken as the new offensive coordinator. I think it points to them re-signing Lamar at the end. I think they're playing hardball in order to see if Lamar Jackson, who has no agent, as far as I know, will cave in to whatever they're offering based on what the market value is. But with Arthur Smith, I think he can adapt to Lamar, especially with that running game they have with Cordell Patterson and now the starter, Tyler Algier. I think they can definitely build something around that. Especially because you have like monsters like Kyle Pitts. Lamar loves throwing to the tight ends. You have Kyle Pitts, and they just signed. No, they traded for Johnny Smith actually. So you have the two tight ends you need to like force the running the ball or the play action that frees them up because the linebackers get stuck up, right? And I think you have that stability there, and you have an ascending talent in Drake London, who is in dire need of a top 10 QB to really elevate. And I think Lamar's the guy. I think they're missing a guy like Lamar to really make it work. Um, I understand the two first round picks on franchise tag, but if you're looking at Atlanta, they're sitting on the outside of that top four pick range right now. So I think it's worth the investment to sign Lamar and extend him, even if the price seems high, because you have all these weapons on rookie contract right now. So I'm a little bit surprised why Atlanta's not interested right now, but I think it's a perfect fit for Lamar to walk into in the shoes of Vick, if you're thinking about it from that storyline. But I also think the logical fit with how the coach Arthur Smith can adjust to his players and what the skill positions around him can do. I think Lamar would fit great there.
Yeah. And yeah, I do agree that like Lamar probably would be a good scheme fit in Atlanta as well. But again, just like I guess in the NFL, it's always about the unknown that is scary, and you know, you try to play with what you know, and sometimes it is just scary, and it
Yeah,
makes sense why
yeah,
they're hesitant to make that trade. But I feel like whatever they do, I feel like they'll have full confidence in, which I think at least at bare minimum is the best for the franchise. Just being fully committed to which decision they decide to go with.
yeah. I think in the end he'll sign with the Ravens, but in case he gets traded, Atlanta is my number one destination. Couldn't tell already. All right. So we saw Adam Thielen got released by the Vikings, which was an exciting move. Personally, I thought this would be a good move for any team who's looking for a number two receiver who's really a number one receiver, just to kind of get greedy for offensive talent. So, what do you think Adam Thielen's release means for the Vikings? And now that we know that he's going to the Panthers, how does that affect their offense?
Yeah. Yeah. So for that Vikings offense, um, obviously they have one of the best receivers in the league in Justin Jefferson, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see the Vikings to maybe draft another receiver in like the first or second round. See if they can develop a guy behind Jefferson with I believe it's KJ Osborne in the mix to
KJ Osborne. Yeah.
yeah, to kind of make plays and help that offense as well. Yeah, and then going to the Panthers.
Wait, hold on. You forgot about TJ Hawkinson?
Oh yeah, TJ Hawk. I was thinking more like receiver wise.
He is a receiver.
Well, yeah, he's a tight end, but I was thinking like receiver depth. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because I did leave out Dalvin Cook as well, who is a pretty good.
Well, we don't know what his future is, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's Cook or Madison, I think their offense for the most part will be fine, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But go ahead. What were you gonna say about the Panthers?
The Panthers, and obviously it looks like the Panthers are going to go quarterback in the draft, and so they're trying to get guys on that offense, even though they did just let go of DJ Moore to the Bears. They're trying to still get talent around there to prepare whatever quarterback that they end up choosing to go with. As much talent, and I think a veteran like Adam Thielen would be good for a young quarterback just to kind of work with from a receiver with quarterback basis.
Who do you think that quarterback is?
Um, my personal favorite quarterback in the draft is CJ Stroud, but I know the Panthers have been in discussions and like talks about not being afraid of Bryce Young's size. So we'll kind of see what they do, but I do think CJ Stroud is probably the best quarterback in this class so far.
Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of digging into what CJ Stroud can do and what Frank Reich likes in his quarterbacks. He likes tall quarterbacks who are extremely accurate. So if you connect the dots there and the puzzle pieces, I think they're going CJ Stroud, but in my opinion, they should go with Bryce Young. Um, as far as the Panthers signings, I think they were very low cost moves. I wouldn't call them mid players. I wouldn't disrespect Thielen, Hayden Hurst like that at all, even Miles Sanders. But I do think it's to assess what the rookie quarterback can do well in that situation, given some talent is there. It's not like it's bare bone like the Bears when you saw Fields in his rookie season, like have to deal with in second year as well. So I don't think their offense is going to be lighting up the scoreboard, especially in the first half of the season. Um, but I do think Thielen will get his numbers. He'll be in a thousand. He'll be 1,000 yard receiver, I think, in that offense. Um, you also have to look at Terrence Marshall and see what he can do as well. And I think they'll be a competent offense, but they won't compete in my eyes with the Saints or the Falcons if the Falcons can get the QB production they need. So I think it'll be interesting. But I do think Bryce Young has that talent to be that generational quarterback that we lauded Andrew Luck to be, Trevor Lawrence to be. I just think he's in a different mold. And I think he'll prove that size for quarterbacks does not matter. If you look at Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, and things of that nature. So I think I think it's a good signing for the Panthers. They clearly need a number one receiver, and Thielen can do that. I don't think he's the wide receiver one that we expect Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson to be, but he's a quality number one option.
Mhm.
You know where I'm going with this now.
Yeah.
DJ Moore, he's on the Bears now. I'm so excited about this move. I saw the move. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. This is it. This is the AJ Brown we needed. This is the Jamar Chase we need to elevate the offense. I was so ecstatic when he got moved, and then I saw all the picks that got traded with him for number one, and I just love the move. Ryan Poles did a fabulous job with this trade, and I think this is what's going to skyrocket the Bears' offensive production for years to come. Obviously, we lost David Montgomery at running back, so that will change a little bit. But I think Khalil Herbert's ready to be a running back one. I personally thought he was better than David Montgomery last season, especially when you see like I think he put up 170 yards when David Montgomery was out. So I think he's more than capable. And then when you add in Deontay Foreman, Robert Tunyon as ancillary pieces to that offense, I think it's wheels up for this Bears offense. I would not be surprised if they don't go Johnson or Skoronki, I think, from Northwestern a tackle. If they don't go either of those options, I would not be surprised if they go with Jackson Smith Najibba.
Mhm.
Just to add one more receiving talent, just to be greedy and elevate that offense. So I think moving down from 1 to 9 is a good move by the Bears. Who knows? We still may end up with Jalen Carter, three technique we've been looking for on that defense. But I think Ryan Poles needed to make this move to really give Fields confidence and say, hey, I'm putting my trust in you. Take us to the promised land. We've seen what you did last year.
Mhm. Yeah, I do think the Bears did a good job adding offense or pieces to both their offense and defense during this free agency period, and the Bears have a bunch of potential to work with their draft picks right now as well over the next little bit, just to kind of fill up some of those other holes or take whoever is best player available at the time. It's like you said, they could go wide receiver like JSN or somebody, or if Jalen Carter managed to fall to that 9th spot, that'd be another huge, tremendous pickup for the Bears. I do think, the sky is the limit if, everything gels together and the Bears, can become one functioning unit rather than, I guess, a mess that they were kind of in and out of all last season.
Last season, it felt like the last 5 to 7 years. I think honestly, it's been a long time that Bears fans can say this, but we got confidence in the offense this season. Like on paper, this looks really good. This looks like this is going to be a major hit with the spacing that DJ Moore can provide. Because if you think about Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool, they're really good receivers, but they're not on that starting level yet, in my opinion. Especially Chase Claypool. I think he's a very scheme dependent option that you can use in the vertical game. You could use him on jet sweeps because he has the speed to get around guys, but I don't think he wins with timing and route combinations that you see in the DJ Moore level receiver. And with Darnell Mooney, he's there. We've seen him beat Jalen Ramsey a couple of times when they squared off. But I think he's more of that field stretcher you need or that second receiver that you need. I don't think he's that one option that you're looking for that on 3rd and 5, who are you going to? Now the Bears have that guy. So I think it will help simplify the offense a lot more and give Fields confidence and room to grow as a passer. I think he could pass the ball. I've seen him do it in Ohio State, but seeing the Bears make a move like this shows we know you can do it. Now go out and prove us. All right. We got 2 more weapons being moved to different teams to talk about. The first being Darren Waller. We mentioned him at towards the start of the podcast when we were talking about what the Raiders are doing with Jimmy G and what their offense is looking like. But we didn't look on the other side of that Darren Waller trade. He got moved to the Giants. I think this will be a huge boost to Daniel Jones and co. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's again another super good move, just for another team, and yeah, really opens up their offense just because he is from the tight end position, able to stretch the field. And then on the other side with that tight end, you got Daniel Bellinger, who as well is a pretty solid route runner. He can make plays for that offense as we did see last season. So I think it helped, Daniel Jones progress as a passer even more than he did this year. And obviously, I'm pretty sure they're keeping Darius Slayton on that team.
As far as I know, he's on that team. So
yep. Yeah. And then Richie James, and then I guess
they just added Paris Campbell just to help out with the receiving.
Yeah.
And they have Wan'Dale Robinson as well.
Yeah, so they kind of got like a mix of receivers that I think they're really hoping can take that next step, next season. As we kind of saw flashes from all these players this year, and with Paris Campbell, you've seen him flash with the Colts when he was there. And obviously Saquon back for another year. Hopefully they eventually can get him to a long-term contract, which is still a bit risky just because, again, second contracts for running backs are always, questionable. But I do think that all these signings and the trade for Darren Waller helped the Giants tremendously and help with Daniel Jones' development for the next little bit.
I think that the Saquon Barkley argument's tough because he's like a once-in-a-generation type player. I know Nick Chubb ended up being the best back from that draft class compared to Saquon Barkley, but a lot of people lauded Saquon Barkley just because of his athletic feat. I think it would do them good to prepare and draft a running back. Like, it could be a low-cost option like Deuce Vaughn or Tajay Spears. I think they would be great fits in that Giants offense to supplant Saquon if he decides to move on from the Giants. But one player we completely forgot about, Isaiah Hodgins, came out of nowhere last season. I think with the Darren Waller move, it's similar to what we discussed with DJ Moore target. And that primary target is going to be super helpful to open up the field for Hodgins, Paris Campbell, Wan'Dale Robinson. While Hodgins can win some routes on his own and so can Campbell, I don't think Wan'Dale Robinson's that dude that can separate against primary coverage and press coverage. I think he needs to be schemed open. And with the addition of Darren Waller, who can win in matchup situations, I think Wan'Dale Robinson will get a lot more opportunities to get more space to do what he can do. So overall, I think this is a good option. I know Dable's going to make that offense explosive and figure out ways to get Darren Waller the ball, so I'm not worried about that. I'll admit, I was never high on Daniel Jones. I never thought he was a top 10 or top 12 QB ever, but sometimes development is very slow, and it takes guys a couple years getting in the right situation with coaching wise and offensive schemes to show. So like he has the opportunity to do that and prove me wrong. Again, I was not a fan of Justin Herbert, and he proved me wrong based on the Oregon system. And I think Daniel Jones still has that opportunity to do that.
Yeah. And then additionally with the Giants, I wouldn't be surprised in the draft or even further in free agency that they make another move for a wide receiver, another offensive piece to kind of, I don't know, do something with it. But I guess, it all comes down to what happens in the draft.
Yeah, I think adding another primary receiver would really make it unfair on the Giants because You got like freaks at the wide receiver position, the tight end, and the running back. And that's really gonna make that offense almost unguardable. Alrighty, welcome back. We took a little bit of a break. We were getting a little bit too hyped up with some of the options, some of the moves, and then before we wanted to jump back, we just wanted to make sure we're all refreshed and ready to go. And right now, we just found out that Elijah Moore got traded to the Browns. I believe it is Elijah Moore and a third round pick to the Browns going to in exchange, they're gonna send their second round pick. I believe it's the 42nd or the 43rd overall pick back to the Jets. Obviously, we known that Elijah Moore had his issues with the Jets during the season in the middle of a 3-game winning streak. He opted to request for a trade when the team was doing well, despite the quarterback play. What do you think this means for the Jets offense? And more importantly, are you a believer in Deshaun Watson and that Browns offense?
Yeah, and yes, I guess for the Jets offense, it makes sense that they offloaded someone, especially because they just signed Hardman today as well from the Chiefs. So you have Hardman, you have, I think it's Alan Lazard, right? Isn't he the one that?
Alan Lazard, yep.
Yeah, you have him, you have Corey Davis, and then you have Garrett Wilson, all as receivers on that Jets offensive.
And they still have Denzel Mims, I believe, too, on that option.
We'll see what happens with Denzel Mims, but that, and then, if they try to keep on working on that Aaron Rodgers wish list, you might see another receiver to
you mean Mercedes Lewis too?
Yeah, Mercedes Lewis. Yeah, the best tight end in the league, better than Travis Kelce, Mercedes Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, obviously, it makes sense that they'd have to offload somebody, and especially for a guy that requested a trade from the team. It's, I guess, best that they do him. And with Aaron Rodgers coming, or hopefully him coming to the Jets, is what I'm sure a lot of Jets fans are hoping. And maybe that Nathaniel Hackett connection can work out better this time. But we might see a bit more of an elevated offense. But I feel like any bit of elevation for that Jets offense will do a lot of wonders for that team. Just with how we've seen Zach Wilson, with the ladies, he loves the moms. But anyway, yeah. Speaking of loving ladies, yeah, you said Deshaun Watson. Yeah, I think that with him getting a full offseason with the Browns offense, he should play better this year. Obviously, last year he was pretty rocky, especially with his first start. But having Amari Cooper on that team, and then getting Elijah Moore, we'll see what happens with David Bell and like Donovan Peoples-Jones, so that kind of falling into that 3-4 role of that offense, in my opinion. But you have all of that, and then being able to rely on that run game as well, despite losing to Ernest Johnson and Kareem Hunt gone, right?
He's still a free agent. He's on my wish list for running backs. Before the Bears signed Deontay Foreman.
Yeah.
But
yeah, go ahead.
I'm really excited about David Bell. And what his outlook's going to be in his second season before that trade happened. I don't think the production will be there, but I think you'll see him in an elevated role in that offense from the slot. But the good thing about it is David Bell and Elijah Moore can be interchangeable in that offense. So you don't have like guys like stuck in specific slotted roles doing plays. So it can kind of make it easier to make your plays more versatile and confuse the defense of what route combination is going to happen. So I think personally this is real tough for Deshaun Watson. I think you should consider his season a year ago to be like his rookie season, considering how much time he had off, requesting a trade from the Texans, and then having all those allegations levied against him during the massages. I think you detailed that pretty well. that was pretty funny. That was good. But I think Elijah Moore, one of my favorite receivers coming out from I think the 2019 or 2020 draft. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I think he is a really good receiver who hasn't fit the right system yet or found the right QB combination to make it work yet. And I think he can be that number one guy, or at least a supplement to Amari Cooper and still get 1,000 yards receiving. So I think you should expect that out of him. I wouldn't be surprised if Bell is that 1,000 yard receiver too. I think he's really underrated from I think he came from Michigan. Anyway, this is good for the Browns offense. I have no idea what the Jets are doing. I think this is just them trying to play Rodgers. And you could see, I think they're trying to package that those first two second round picks they have because they have 42 and 43, and then they have the first round pick too. So I think it'll make it easier for them to make the trade. But I think it's a downgrade for that offense when Aaron Rodgers comes back.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't say much though. They still have Garrett Wilson, and they still have Alan Lazard and McCole Hardman. But I think signing McCole Hardman and trading away Elijah Moore from a talent perspective is is a downgrade because Hardman can be schemed open, but he can't win one-on-one matches by himself. I think he needs all the pressure's on Garrett Wilson to create that for him, and I don't know if Rodgers will be able to elevate that offense because of that. Um, I think the Lazard thing is interesting. I also think he's a team player, but I also think this takes less pressure off him being the opposite of Garrett Wilson. So I think it will balance the run and the pass well. But from the passing perspective, it's not as scary anymore with Elijah Moore gone. I personally think they should be starting Denzel Mims. He should be a starter on that team, in my opinion. Especially now with Aaron Rodgers, who can get him the ball in the fade situations and the vertical game. I think they should really be giving him opportunities, but we'll see what happens. We spoke about the Aaron Rodgers, the Jets rumors. I'm confident it will happen. It sounds like you are too. And we spoke about how this will look for the Jets, but what about the Packers? Are you believing Jordan Love?
Yeah, from what we've seen with Jordan Love, in his limited time on the field, I do think that he has shown that he can play good football. There's a reason he also went in the first round a while ago, and I think it's better that he didn't go like as a top 10 pick when he was drafted, and where he ended up landing with the Packers. Took a lot of pressure off of him, like needing to start immediately, and he was obviously able to sit behind Aaron Rodgers for quite a while just to kind of, I guess, learn how NFL offenses work. Yeah, I guess like the main concern with the Packers offense is just lack of receiving talent. Because I mean, like off the top of my head, I feel like Aaron Jones might be the best receiver on that team almost. I mean, not saying that he is, but
Come
like,
on now. Come on now. Come on. After the season Christian Watson had in the second half, you're really gonna say Aaron Jones is the best option on that team?
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, he did good, obviously, but again, it's like we'll see happen. We'll see what happens with Christian Watson, especially in year two, because he did have a rocky start. He did kind of come into it in that second half, but also now he have another offseason, it's like a different quarterback that he has to play with, and so you have to get the timings right there. And Christian Watson does have that big play potential, but again, there's like a bit of a lack of depth, I think, in that receiving room right now, and just overall lack of, I guess, a good veteran presence. I mean, Randall Cobb technically, I guess, was there, but if Aaron
No,
Rodgers,
no, 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 no. He's probably going to the Jets, remember? Maybe
yeah,
he's
yeah,
on
so
Aaron Rodgers' wish list.
yeah, so that's what I was saying. Yeah, like I mean, if Aaron Rodgers' Christmas wish list comes true, probably won't see Randall Cobb there. Maybe they try to bring back Jordy Nelson back from retirement. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but
Just
yeah,
revamp that entire receiving room of the Jets.
yeah, bring back Donald Driver, Greg Jennings.
Yeah, 100%. Um, yeah, I mean, this is a little bit subjective because I'm a Bears fan, right? If Jordan Love becomes a Hall of Fame level QB, I will be absolutely miserable. Talk about luck. Talk about talk about luck. From Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, I would be absolutely miserable because I'm like, the Bears have this entire system played out. if this turns out that Jordan Love is better than Aaron Rodgers, then I will absolutely lose my mind. I'll say this: he's a quality quarterback from what I've seen. He knows how to spot the holes and cover two. I think that was one of his weaknesses at Utah, um, when he was quarterbacking that team, and I think it was Utah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
like he knows how to throw the whole shot and cover two on the sideline. So I think his development there has improved. I think it also helps that you have a two-headed monster with Dylan and Aaron Jones, like you mentioned. I think they'll alleviate some of the pressure in the running and the passing game on him, so he can properly go through his reads because they are bona fide options in all seriousness. Um, about the second year wide receivers in general, meaning rookies from the past season coming into their second year here. I think most of them, a majority of them, those who work on their craft and like work on the technical aspects of the game instead of the athletic aspects of the game, I think that we see a huge bump up in general in the NFL because they don't have to worry about the combine anymore. They don't have to worry about pro days, the interviews, the draft, things of where they're going to end up. All those things, they play a role in how you prepare as a professional. And I think Christian Watson is going to really improve as a receiver because of that, because he has more time to work on the technical aspects of his game. I think Romeo Dobbs is fine as a number two option. I don't think you can trust him as a number one option. But I do think if they add another person in that room to help up Jordan Love, whether it's a tight end or a receiver, I think I think their offense will get a lot more buffered up. Um, I really like Dalton Kincaid as a tight end. He's
Mhm.
my favorite one from that class, even over Michael Mayer. And I think if he's on the Packers, it would help alleviate the loss of Robert Tonyan
Mhm.
and give them a real receiving threat. Because I think Kincaid has glimpses of like how Kelsey gets open against zones and matchup coverages, and I think that's what that offense needs. Opposite of Christian Watson to really give more spacing. Alrighty, so now that we awkwardly went through that Jets coverage and that Packers coverage on Aaron Rodgers moving to the Jets and how that deals with Packers, another rumor that actually piques my interest a little bit is DeAndre Hopkins. There's a lot of rumors going on all offseason. A lot of people are targeting him to the Bears. I know there's some rumors that he might be on the Chiefs, and then that happens, look out. They got two stud receivers there with Tony and Hopkins that I'm really excited about. Not to mention Kelsey. Kelsey's
Mhm.
absolutely a top 10 receiver already, if we're disregarding position. Um, but where do you think DeAndre Hopkins should go? Or where do you think the most likely spot he should go?
Um, Obviously, a lot of like the articles and sports writers have talked about the move going to the Patriots or something like that, and I think
Oh, that's
um,
it. Yep.
yeah, but I think that in all honesty, no matter where he goes, he'll make a great impact. You know, you could even put him on the Bengals and he'd have a, I think he'd elevate the offense there. I mean, I don't think he'll go to the Bengals, but I think whatever
Dude, if
team
he
he
if
gets
he goes
in,
to the Bengals, if he goes to the Bengals are going to the Super Bowl.
yeah,
100%. You're talking about three number one options on the same team on the receiver position.
mhm,
They're going to the Super Bowl in my mind if that happens.
yeah, but yeah, so like kind of like how that works. Anywhere he goes will be a great move, I think. Obviously there's the price to get him, which is the reason why not every team's trading for him, and um, obviously I think he is kind of the focal point of that Cardinals offense right now, and so can see like why there's hesitation to like not want to trade him, but at the same time there's a reason he's on the block. So um again, I really have no clue where he could land. I mean, he just because
Would you do um would you do Mike Williams and a third round pick for DeAndre Hopkins? Would you do
um
that trade? If you're the Chargers.
I would say no. Um just because he is kind of the young superstar talent on that offense right now, like
Okay.
besides the quarterback position, because
Okay.
like say you have DeAndre Hopkins, who's, that 30-year-old age range for receivers that, while he could have a couple more productive years, that could also be the start of a fall off in production. You have Keenan Allen, who's also up there in age, who could have a fall off season whenever. Austin Eckler's obviously we're seeking a trade right now, and so you have Mike Williams, who's kind of that young star in that offense that um, is super important for them, I think. Again, if Mike Williams was on another team that had other young offensive talents, or they're pushing for a Super Bowl right now, I would understand. I think that's a reasonable trade to make, like talent and value wise. But I think in the Chargers situation, it would be a no for that kind of trade.
Okay, that was just an idea thrown out there. I think the Chargers are a good location for him,
Mm-hmm.
but I think starting to persuade me a little bit because especially because of the Austin Eckler trade rumors. Um, I think they'll end up resigning Austin Eckler, but if I were to pick a destination in particular, I think it'd be Houston. Um, Actually, no, scratch that. Scratch that. I don't know why I thought Houston. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. No. You've seen what he can do. I think that's where I was going with it, in retrospect. You've seen what he can do in Houston with no quarterbacks at all. When you're thinking about when Hopkins first came to the league, and then once Deshaun came to the league, you just saw his production still remain the same and increase. So, like you said, he's going to elevate any offense. That's why we're talking about him. It's important to understand trade destinations. Um, if I were the Colts or the Jaguars, I would take a look. I think it would help their offenses a ton, especially because the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence is still on a rookie contract. So I think you could take advantage of that, re-sign Hopkins to a big deal. Trade a couple of quality receiving talents for a QB that the Cardinals might draft if they're going to wait it out for Kyler Murray. And then from the Colts perspective, I feel like you need somebody outside, like T.Y. Hilton, I think just resigned there, and then Michael Pittman. I think you need another guy to help out that rookie quarterback that we all assume the Colts are going to take. They need one after their slug of veteran QBs. So those would be the two options I would imagine Hopkins going to. I don't see the Cardinals trading him. Definitely not the NFC West, but not in the NFC with all those ascending talents. I don't think they want to help out an NFC team and make it harder on themselves. So I would think if they're trading somebody, it would go to the NFC South, AFC South.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so last one for today is kind of actually we still have the draft to talk about, but we'll keep it short. What has been your favorite free agency move so far?
Favorite free agency move. Oh, I think the Broncos have had a fantastic free agency so far.
Wow. I wonder, could it be because you're a Broncos fan?
Could be. It also could be because they spent so much money. And when you spend a lot of money, it's fun.
I was so envious when they signed McGlinchey. I was like, dang it, because everybody had him going to the Bears in the rumors. I think he met with the Bears too. I was so sure he was signing. And then when I saw that huge contract at Broncos, I'm like, dang it. And then I saw the money and I'm like, maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it is a better deal than to like give out than what the Chiefs gave out for Juwan Taylor, was it?
Good point.
The tackle, yeah. And so from that, I guess it makes sense. And it does seem like the Broncos are trying to do more of a power run kind of offensive line this season.
Speaking of which, they got Ben Powers too.
Yeah, they got a lot of maulers on that offense. You have Garrett Bowles coming back as kind of one of those big mauler type guys. You got Ben Powers, you got Quinn Miners, now you got Mike McGlinchey. Who are all kind of just good in the run game. Obviously, center, bit of a weakness. I still don't like Lloyd Cushenberry that much. I mean, not like technique wise, he's not too bad. It's more so like strength and size wise is where
he's a center out of LSU, right? I think he played guard, but then yeah, he might have switched positions, I think. But I thought he was really good at LSU. That's surprising. I haven't watched much of that offensive line. I know Bowles has improved a lot from his holding calls a couple seasons back, but I think they had a good off season because they understood where their focus was. They're not trying to make Russell Wilson play hero ball with that offense. I think you'll see a lot of changes to help Russell Wilson with the coaching for the offensive line. I think that's the underrated part. Do you believe they're trading Sutton or Judy, or do you think they're just like assessing value for them?
I do think that's trying to assess value. I think at least in regards to Jerry Jeudy, it's a lot more of a value assessment just to see if someone is willing to just overpay too much to get Jerry Jeudy. But I mean, we kind of thought the end of last season, Jerry Jeudy was kind of the start of the offense, especially with just a bunch of injuries happening with the Broncos and a lot of messes happening over there. But yeah, I do hope that Jerry Jeudy stays. And then if Courtland Sutton can, get back to his 2019, 2020 self or whenever he had that good season, before his ACL tear.
I thought he was due for a breakout season, dude, this year. I thought for sure. I should have kept my hopes suppressed because of how Hackett has handled situations when he's been the head coach. But I thought he was headed for a good season. I think he's still headed for a good season. I think he's the number one in my opinion in that offense. But I could be wrong. Because I know Jerry Jeudy has stuff he needed to work on from a technical aspect, as far as looking the ball in, catching, and then getting that process down for the actual catching standpoint. Because before the catch, he's one of the best receivers in the league. But at the catch point, I think he needed to work on some stuff. So I like where the Broncos are going. I didn't like that they couldn't get Draymond Jones to resign. I think that's a little bit of a loss, along with their D coordinator loss. But I think they can get back what they lost with a lot of losses. I'm trying to pile on from last year. You see, I'm just kidding. But Vance Joseph as the defensive coordinator, I think should bring some familiarity to that move. So I think that was a good choice.
Yeah. Well, the Broncos did also bring in Zach Allen from the Cardinals, who had a really, really good year again under Vance Joseph last season. And
that's right. Yeah. And he's an underrated defensive end. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had a really good run stop rate just last season. He had it was a breakout year for him, and it was higher than what Draymond Jones had. And Draymond Jones, honestly, they matched stats, except Jones had one extra sack, but Zach Allen had a bunch of quarterback hits, knockdowns, and passes batted and everything. So I was
about to say quarterback stats sacks are not a good indicator of your impact on the defensive line. I think pressures and hurries are better stats because they show how well you beat your offensive lineman and how fast you can get to the quarterback. So I wouldn't really bet on the sack aspect. So I see your point.
Yeah. Yeah, but another thing I did like was with the Bears defensive signings, they got two good off the ball linebackers with TJ Edwards and Edmonds. Just both good guys that can, move around, and obviously they're probably not quite as good as Roquan was, but obviously Roquan kind of wanted out, and so this is a great fill-in for just the next couple of years, which I think was a great move for the Bears, especially just because they have so much cap space to work with.
And I think we still lead the league in cap space. I think, despite doing those moves. So I think it was just a cost efficiency move when you think about it. Not allocating too much of money to one player. When you really have holes across the entire defense, I thought tackling was the main issue with that team. So I was not 100% happy when they signed TJ Edwards and forgetting his name, the Buffalo linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds. Yes, Tremaine Edmonds. I thought those are two huge signings. I think they'll help out Jack Sanborn a lot. I wasn't a fan that they lost Nicholas Morrow, but I think they needed an upgrade in that position and just an identity on how it is important to value the tackling aspect of football, because that's the most important part. Yeah, you're going to get beat and you're going to lose angles on guys, but can you tackle? I think that's a sign of good disciplined defense and good Eberflus philosophy on the hit principle. Tackling's on the list on one of them. Sorry, no, it's technique, but tackling is a major focal point of what he looks for in the players. First word is hit. That's the first aspect of tackling on the impact. So I think those two signings were good. But as a Bears fan, it hurts me to say this. I think you know where I'm going with this. But I think the Detroit Lions free agency moves have been absolutely rock solid. The cornerbacks, to go outside of Jeff Okudah, they did amazing. They got CJ Gardner-Johnson. They got Emmanuel Mosley. And then they got one other corner. I'm blanking on him right now.
Cam Sutton from the Steelers.
Cam Sutton, yes. He's an underrated corner from that team. And I think their secondary, especially with Aaron Glenn, who's a very good defensive coordinator. It was just his first year on the job, but when you saw him in the second half of the season, they were really, really well coached against the pass. I think that cornerback movement is going to really shut down that pass area, and they're going to get really buffered up by Aiden Hutchinson on that offense. Not on that offense, on that defense. Starting with a pass rush, that will help. Um, but on the offensive end, they not only took David Montgomery for the Bears, they're also getting Jameson Williams back from injury. Again, second year wide receiver, doesn't have to worry about the draft process. Can just work on the field as a professional. They already have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Even though they lost TJ Hawkinson, Brock Wright's a good option. I think it's wheels up for this offense because the one thing they were missing when they lost Jamal Williams, but they signed David Montgomery, was that thunder aspect that can serve as an every down role when Swift gets hurt, or if Swift, I shouldn't say when, it's if he gets hurt. That I wouldn't wish that on any player. But Swift is such a good option in the passing game, but he needs stuff to work on in the running game and develop in that aspect. Whereas David Montgomery already has a technical refinement between the tackles. So I think their running game got more diverse. They still have Jamar Jefferson, I think, and some other backs in that depth chart that can really supplant what David Montgomery can do as well. So I think they had a really impressive offseason. I think there's still some moves they can make in the draft, but I'm really impressed by what their offense is going to look like as a result of this move, and then how their defense is going to improve. I think I think they're going to be a real force to reckon with in the NFC. I think you started to see it when they beat the Packers on the last game at Lambeau Field. That was impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And the strides that Jared Goff has made as a quarterback, um, there's a lot to look forward to. Alrighty. Since the draft season's about to come up in a month or so, I figured it'd be interesting to give your take on like who's your favorite player that you like coming out of the draft.
See, there's quite a lot of talent that I'm actually pretty excited for this upcoming draft. Obviously, the receiver class is a bit weaker than the past few ones, but
I agree.
Yeah. Just a second, I have like a whole spreadsheet somewhere, I think.
Ooh,
a bunch of the rookies
research, guys.
That I'm pretty excited about. But while I look for that, you want to kind of talk about who you like?
Yeah. I can go ahead and start. Yeah. Obviously, I've talked about Tajay Spears. I talked about Anthony Richardson. I talked about Juice Vaughn. I really think they're good players at their respective positions that are going to be productive. But my favorite is probably a receiver you haven't heard of. A lot of guys have been talking about Zay Flowers, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Kayshon Boutte, like the other receivers. Quentin Johnson. How could I forget? But when I'm looking at guys I would want coming out the draft, I really need to see the route running, because route running is going to really dictate how well you can separate regardless of your speed. I don't think 40 times are a good indicator of how well you can beat defenders and press coverage when you only have like a millisecond to make a move, or how you run your route. And I think the guy that I would want the Bears to get, but I think would excel in any offense, is Michael Wilson from Stanford. I think when you saw his pro day and saw the way he's run his routes, he's the best route runner I think from the draft class. Even better than Zay Flowers, because Zay Flowers has good releases and needs to work at the catch point with some of his routes. But Michael Wilson already has the catch point to go with his route, even if he's not as explosive as Zay Flowers. I think he's the guy to really look out for, and I think he's a sleeper in this class. One of my favorites.
Yeah, I think that's a good. I like your like analysis on that. But another receiver that I really liked was just a second. A notification popped up. It's Josh Downs. Yeah, but
that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of good like pro comps in regards to like route runners that they like see a lot into him, and like you were saying, route running is a huge part of being a quality receiver. Because I mean, you look at some of the top receivers in the league right now, and none of them are known to have blazing fast 40-yard dash times. They're all known to have like the good 3-cone splits, the just being elite route runners that have good hands. And so I think Josh Downs is another one of those guys that falls under that prototype of wide receiver that a lot of teams could benefit from drafting. But again, this draft has a lot of superstar running backs into it. So is there like kind of an under the radar running back that you're really into? I know you said Ty Spears is one of them, but anybody else?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, just a one quick thing on Josh Downs. I think I've seen him compared to Cooper Kupp, which is very lofty expectations because I mean, out of Eastern Washington and Pro Day, you saw Cooper Kupp beat dudes. Absolutely like beat dudes. I think Steve Smith said he was the best route runner coming out of that class. Back when he was like nobody knew who he was. So if you're being compared to Cooper Kupp, that's a major thing. But I have to watch more tape on him. I've seen him run some good routes as a thought runner, but not enough to make a formulated opinion on where he stacks against the top of the class. Now, to your running backs, obviously I think Bijan Robinson is the one everybody's talking about. I think he's the best running back of that class. I think one guy that's getting underrated that I haven't mentioned before, I think it's Zach Evans. I think a lot of people are down on him because of the off the field concerns, but if you don't know by now, I'm really into technicals, like from a running back and receiver standpoint. And I think Zach Evans has that in between the tackles that which you really need in the NFL, because yeah, anybody in college can just race to the outside and beat somebody on a 60-yard game and show out really well in the 40-yard dash, and people think he's good. But what's really hard is to understand, like against stacked boxes, what is the leverage of the defensive lineman? What kind of cutbacks should I take during zone running? And then how to navigate through the gas team plays so I can get 3 to 4 yards consistently instead of getting blown at the line of scrimmage. Now, granted, a lot of it has to do with offensive line. Back at Rutgers, I know from seeing Isaiah Pacheco, like the offensive line was not that good, and it's part of the reason why his draft stock fell so much. But he ended up being a revelation for the Chiefs because they had a clearly better offensive line, one of the best in the league, and you saw what a difference it made. I think with Zach Evans, you can clearly see that he has the talent to go inside and outside, but he also can catch the football well. I think there's more concerns about it compared to Bijan because he doesn't have that electrifying speed or like that cutback ability that's just rare. It's sort of like your Saquon Barkley versus Nick Chubb argument from the same draft class. That's what I feel like Bijan Robinson and Zach Evans is, but I don't think it should be an argument on who is better than who. Why can it be like both of them are really good starting running back? If you pick them, they're going to be really productive for your team. What about you?
Yeah. So like you said, I think Bijan is also the best, running back prospect we've probably seen in quite a while. But a running back.
It's not as tight as Saquon, yeah, for sure. Who's your running back?
So I really like his backup running back, like coming into the draft. Roschon Johnson, I think that's what his name is.
Yeah.
Obviously, like he didn't put up the super fancy numbers. Obviously, just being behind Bijan,
he's not going to be as productive.
Yeah. I don't think anybody puts up those kind of crazy numbers behind someone.
It's just
like
a snap count analysis. Yeah.
Yeah, but like that time that he's been able to play, he's put up good numbers. I think one thing that obviously scares some people is just him being an older player, and while he doesn't have that much tread on his tires from running the ball, that is something that people do look into with running backs in particular. So I do think that he has a lot of talent. He used to play quarterback, so he does have a really good grasp of like how to understand offenses and how like his role should be within an offense as well. He's like kind of another big, powerful running back that I think that can do a lot of wonders for a team, whatever team drafts him. So that's just kind of my guy that I'm looking into.
No, to your point, I think that's a huge aspect you laid out. If you were used to play quarterback, a lot of times, as quarterbacks know, you have to understand the holes in the zones, right? And from a running back perspective who has quarterback knowledge, if you already know where the zones are, then you know where to run your routes and where to stop your routes. Like, I doubt he'll be running too many slant routes, but I'm talking about like option routes where you just have to just stop where the hole is or keep going if you're against the linebacker or safety. But I think that part's really underrated and really matters. Um, Obviously, you're not going to get much buzz if you're going to be behind Bijan and not going to have as many snaps. But I think that's a good take. Starting out, I think it's good to put him in the pass catching role and see what he looks like and running the football. But that's a good comp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so this is kind of just overall what our thoughts are on kind of some of the sleeper picks in the draft. But obviously, we don't want to take too much more time talking about this. And in the future, we're obviously going to go a little bit more into depth, the draft coverage. We might talk a little bit more about our own personal mock draft. But thanks for listening, everybody. It's been fun talking. We'd also love to hear your opinions, maybe some hot takes, what you think we thought is wrong, maybe who your favorite underrated players entering the draft might be, or just
Do not hold back. Do not hold back. We may have missed a player, and we may talk about him based on your comments. So feel free to throw out who we missed, how egregious our mistakes were. We'll be happy to discuss the draft as we get closer. But thank you for listening, and peace out.
Peace.